Alright guys, welcome to another video. I'm going to show you a simple and efficient way to plan territory for your alliance. There are a lot of factors that make one alliance better than another at building territory, but it breaks down to managing conquest resources effectively, keeping track of your village count, and planning build paths that your team actually understand. The first thing I have to explain, because a lot of players are clueless, is that villages are not free. The first central command and first village you ever build are free, but every village after that continually increases in cost. That cost is in the form of alliance points, and alliance points are generated by already built villages. Each built village produces 3,600 alliance points per hour. The more villages you have built, the more alliance points you'll generate, but this also means each additional village will come at a higher cost. In level 4, there are also conquest supplies. This is the same thing as alliance points, but eventually in a level 4 city will cost both alliance points and conquest supplies. An alliance with max alliance tech research will have a maximum cap of 50 million alliance points and 50 million conquest supplies. If the R5 or R4 drain the conquest resources to zero, you will be unable to build a village until you regenerate enough to cover the cost. Village cost is also exponential. While more villages generate more points, every 5 to 10 villages, the cost of a village goes up by an exponential amount. The cost of a village always exceeds the points you generate per hour, so managing resources is absolutely critical. Okay, so I'm going to show you how I actually plan village builds and territory for our United Power Alliance. So let's go look at our alliance resources. We currently have 50 million alliance points. We currently have 50 million conquest supplies. Our turret cost is currently 502,000 conquest supplies and 217,000 alliance points. Our regen for alliance points is 2.86 million per hour, and for conquest supplies 450,000 per hour. Generally, in a level 4 map, you don't have to worry about your alliance points so much as you do your conquest supplies. So the first thing I do is I always keep track of the number of villages we currently have built. So I go into my alliance tab, I go into territory, and depending on where we're at, if we're in level 3 city, which doesn't matter, but we're in a level 4 Cairo, I can go down and look at the alliance turret grouping, and I can see that we currently have 125 alliance turrets out of the 500 cap that we're able to build. Next, I'm going to be concerned about how many resources we actually have and how many resources it's going to require to get to our objectives. So I'm going to go to the resources tab. I'm going to look and see that we have 50 million conquest supplies. I'm going to also see that our current turret cost is about 502,000 per turret. Now, because turret cost goes up exponentially, I'm going to pad that. And just because I've been in R5 for a long time, I generally have a good feeling of what the turret costs are going to be. You could probably map it out on a spreadsheet and get the exact numbers, but I'm going to round up and say that on average, over the next 20 to 40 turrets, our turret cost is going to be 750,000 points. So if I do the basic arithmetic with the 50 million conquest supplies we have available, that gives us approximately 66 villages available to build. So knowing that we have 66 villages available to build, I can then determine the objective we're trying to achieve, and I can actually use the map to plan how many villages we actually need to build. So in this case, we want to achieve going all the way north up the road. And so one easy way to do this is actually using the military map. You can actually count villages on side roads a little bit easier, because each intersection of a road, for example, this area here, this area here, this area here, those are all areas that contain villages. If we actually zoom in on the map, we're going to see there's actually a village at that spot. If I zoom back out, you can see the intersection. It's not 100% accurate, but it's accurate enough. We can go to this next intersection up here. We can see that there's a village there. We can zoom back out. You can see there's an intersection here and an intersection here. If we zoom back in, those are those two villages. So you can use the military map to help you count villages. What I like to do on my Samsung phone, which I can't show here, is actually take a screenshot of the map and use the little highlighter pencil and poke red dots on each intersection of the map, and then I could count how many red dots it's going to take me to get from point A to point B. For main roads, it's about every other white line that contains a village. So if we actually zoom in on the map, and we can see tag 126 has a village there. If we zoom out, we can see that white line has a village there. We zoom back in, there's another village here. So that's not as accurate as doing the intersections of the side roads. For main roads, you're just going to have to count and map it out. I'm going to go ahead and zoom in. I'm going to count from our blockhouse 2-hour objective, I'm gonna count 1, 2. I don't remember if airstrips count as villages, so 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We're gonna go back up north, 9, 10, and then we have a hidden camp. And then we have 11 through the connected side road, actually all the way up here. And then we can go 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Let's zoom out. Okay, so we're near the airstrip. We have 21, cap the airstrip, go up, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26. So it's going to take 26 villages to get to the opposing enemy's level 1 blockhouse. Now we said we had 66 villages available, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to calculate out that 26 villages averaged at 750,000 alliance points or conquest supplies per village is going to be about 19.5 million conquest supplies of the total 50 million that we're going to have available. So if we build that whole path, we have plenty of resources to get there, and also keep in mind that it's going to take about 5 to 10 minutes per village to build. So if I'm going to build 26 villages, we can calculate out that, and let's just average that to say 7.5 minutes. Let's even round up, just worst case scenario, 8 minutes per village times 26 villages. That's 208 minutes divided by 60 minutes per hour. That gives us 3.4 hours. In that 3.4 hours, we're going to regenerate about 500,000 conquest supplies. Okay, so we're going to, in that time period, we're going to get back about, let's see, almost 2 million conquest supplies. We're going to get back in the 3.4 hours. So we'll spend 19.5, but we'll get back approximately 2 million conquest supplies. Okay. So in that case, we have plenty of resources, not an issue. So now that I know that we can actually achieve that, no problem, resources are not an issue. Now it's time to actually map it out for the team so they know what they're actually going to build. Now, what I like to do with our tagging system in United Power is we actually use a number system, and we'll use 2 different number systems. Every now and then, we will use a 1 through 10 system. So first off, I have to show it's a good idea to only use the bottom 5 tags for builds. So you want to reserve your attack tag, obviously, for battles and attack. Your R4 are going to use that, as well as probably the occupy flag for battle is a good idea. And then the other 3 tags, just freebie tags that R4 can use for whatever. What you don't want people doing is using those tags for builds, because they need to be there for war. But you also don't want them using the build tags during war, because you still need people to know how to build territory. So basically reserve the top 5 tags for war, the bottom 5 tags for builds. Make that very clear in your alliance rules, and train your R4 and make them stick to it. So the numbering system we use will either be 1 through 10 if we have a very short objective we're trying to achieve, and we'll just map out the villages that we want to build and the correct path. So we'll literally mark them out, and we'll do, you know, like in this case, we'll just map out 1. We'll go to the next village, and we'll map out 2, diamond tag. Go to the next, which is actually a raven node, so that may not take up a village, and the next one after that, then we'll map at 3, and so on and so forth. Okay, very easy to understand for your alliance members. However, the problem with that is if you need to map out a very long build path, you run out of tags. So what we like to do is what we call a logical continuation of builds, and so we'll map out 1, we'll delete 2, I'm going to delete 3, and so we'll go 1, and we'll count the villages on the logical road. 2, we'll count the raven node, technically 3, but it doesn't take up a village. So then we'll go to this one, and this one will be 3. This will actually be the 3rd village build. Okay, so from there, we're going to go 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, you notice I skipped a bunch, so we're going to map this one as 7. Club tag, we're going to go from 7, there's 8, let's zoom out. Okay, so we want to go north from there, and we can actually go north from there directly to this side village here. We don't need that other road, so we actually have 7, 8, 9. So we're going to tag this village as 9 using the spade tag. Okay, it's not necessary to map out every single village. We found that most players generally understand the gaps in between. Some don't, but as long as your R4 understand it, they're the ones with the ability to actually build turrets. That's really all that matters at the end of the day. When you have roads where it could go either way, where it could be 7, 8, 9, or 7, 8, 9, and they're not sure, then go ahead and spin the extra tag so there's no confusion, because you don't want R4 building any extra villages if you can avoid it. If you think extra villages are not a bad thing in level 4, think again. Every extra village you build is extra resources that you are either wasting and you cannot get back. And that can actually set you behind another alliance that is going to basically outperform you in terms of their efficiency of how they plan and build their territory. So you want to be better than your opponents at the territory war. And effectively, a level 4 is both, right? It's a military war, very little strategy there, right? More power wins. But on the flip side, you have a territory battle, and more often than not, if you're a weak alliance, and let's say you're a strong alliance actually, but you're doing like a 1v2 or 1v3 situation, you need to win the territory war. So you can be as strong as you can be the strongest alliance in the world, but if you suck at territory, you can still lose. So the 1 through 10 numbering system, though, is actually not the primary numbering system that we use. That gets used very seldom. What we actually do is use a numbering system based on the current number of villages we have built. So this village, we're going to go again to the territory tab, and we're going to see that we have 125 villages built. So this first village here is actually going to become village 126. Okay, and from there we're going to go, obviously, again, count the villages out: 126, 127, Raven Node 128, 129, 130, 131, 132. Let's mark 132 because that's at the logical intersection that we're going to be at. And that's where they're going to make a transition to go on the side road. And they're going to go 132, 133, and then ultimately here, they're going to go 134. Doing it this way, everybody in the alliance knows this is village 126, that's village 128, that's village 129 through 130, 132. They know where the build path is going and where your end is going to be, and you can plan out very long build paths this way. It also allows all your R4 to understand, okay, we've got 126 through 134 marked. That is 8 villages, right? And they can calculate out the 8 villages times approximately 500,000 conquest supplies per village is about 4 million conquest supplies. And they can go in and they can say, okay, the R5 has the territory marked, or whoever plans the territory has it marked and is ready to build. So we're going to go into our resource tab. We're going to check, do we have the 4 million resources to actually build that? And we're going to consider, do we even have a buffer on top of that? Because if you're in a war situation with your opposing enemies in the level 4 map, you need a buffer of resources to account for villages you might lose overnight while the alliance sleeps, and villages you might have to add back simply just to replace what you lost, plus the villages that you want to build to actually make territory gains. Okay, so we've covered how Conquest resources work. We've covered how to actually plan builds. We've covered a tagging system and 2 different versions of it, a 1 through 10 system and a current turret count system. We're also going to touch base briefly on invalid villages. A lot of R4 don't understand how this works, or a lot of players don't understand how this works. But if you have invalid territory means that the village is disconnected from your central command, which makes the territory gray. So if you click on an invalid village, it will actually say that the status is invalid. It will show the territory earnings as 3,600 per hour. When a village is invalid, it does not produce the territory earnings. You do not get those. And so if you have large sections of land that are cut off and become invalid, that essentially becomes what's called a resource drain on your alliance, because what happens is, even though you are no longer generating those resources per hour and they're disconnected from your central command, because they are still built, it does not reduce the cost of a turret. So let's say you have 100 turrets built on the map and 99 of them are invalid, your turret cost is still going to be about 450,000 Conquest supplies. And if you've drained your supplies to 0, and because you only have one valid turret, let's say, you can only generate 3,600 Conquest supplies per hour, you will never achieve enough resources to ever reconnect your territory. Okay, you would have to abandon all of your territory in that case and start over from scratch. So that is a very important thing that all of the R4 need to understand in the Alliance. So when you are collaborating, or whoever does your build planning, like in my Alliance, the rules are only the R5 plans territory. R4 can only build villages if they're tagged by the R5, and they are not allowed to build any village on the map that is not tagged, and that is for the purpose of planning and managing resources. But therein lies also the importance of having an active R5 and active R4, or at least people active to provide that for the Alliance. Otherwise, if you just let your R4 do whatever they want, nobody's going to collaborate. There'll be disagreements on what to build and where to go. Nobody's actually managing resources in a centralized way. Your Alliance is going to fail the territory war, and it's really going to hurt you in a level 4 situation. Another thing I want to touch on is actually, what do you build? What is strategic in a level 4? How do you actually build effective territory and win the event? Obviously, winning an event is a lot more than the territory. You need to be a strong Alliance, and you also need, probably more than anything, you need good allies. But territory is important. The first thing I will say, it is not necessary to seal off land or build entire areas of land. What you really want to do is build enough turrets to get you from A to B. A to B being Raven nodes or strategic locations on the map. Okay, so in our case, we actually started our central command inside our safe zone in Cairo. You can see it here. The first thing we did was we connected the ancient temple, and then from there we built to each of the Raven nodes, and all we built was the straightest, cheapest path meaning the least number of villages it would take to get there. We did not seal off land, we did not build multiple side villages, we simply paved the road to each node, and that was it. And that is really what you want to do in level 4, so that way you do not overspend your Conquest supplies. Like in this case, here's an extra village that an R4 built that they were not supposed to. We essentially lost 250,000 Conquest supplies. We will never get that back, and that village has absolutely no strategic value to the Alliance. Once our level 1 fort opened, we beelined straight to the level 2 fort. We connected up to the airstrip, we proceeded to the hidden camp, we did the Oasis town, and you can see we just built straight lines to all the strategic objectives. We didn't seal anything off. This area here looks a little bit bigger, but it just so happens that all the roads interconnect that way. Not a big deal. Okay, and once we finished all those strategic objectives, we stopped building, and all we're going to do is just let our Conquest resources build back up, and that's where we got now to the 50 million cap. Okay, we don't want to use more than that. This right now, with our current territory, this is a total of 125 villages, and Cairo's a pretty big map, so we don't want to use more than that too early on, because we still have a long way to go. And realistically, being the strongest Alliance on the map, we want to reach everywhere on the map. So we're going to need all 500 of our turrets. If we do what these other opposing alliances do, and we start sealing off big areas of land, whether it's in our safe zone, a lot of people like to do that to protect their settlement for when the safe zone opens, which is really, in my opinion, a moot point, because if you're losing the event, you're going to lose your settlement one way or the other. The other alliances are going to power right through and take it. Okay, so what happens is you're just spending Conquest supplies for no real reason. These villages, now you can make the argument that, oh, we want some farmland. Well, you should farm in level 3, farm in level 4, but don't build land in level 4 for the purpose of farming. Like here's a village here that's being sealed off. They've sealed off a huge amount of land. When this opens up, we're going to plow straight through it and steamroll. It's not going to make any difference to us whatsoever. What is going to make a difference to them is their village cost is going to be exponentially very high. Okay, and so as we go through and we start, actually, this is a really great thing for us as we steamroll through this land, and as we push through it and we start burning every side village that connects to like a main road we build on, for every one village we build, so like this guy, we're going to burn 1, 2, 3 villages. And then we're going to burn that next one. Then we're going to burn another. Well, in this case, we're going to burn the temple, and we're going to burn that. So there's 2. Once we build there, we're going to burn 1, 2. So for every one village we build, we're going to burn at least 2 to 3 villages of theirs. So we are not going to have a resource problem, and they are going to have a resource problem, because to build those villages back, they have to build at least 2 villages back just to replace them. And then if they want to make territory gains, then they have to burn us and push further than that. And that's a struggle when you're in that situation. So versus this, we don't have a bunch of land sealed off. So if we were in a situation where Alliance was pushing us back, they're only going to burn a very small amount of our villages. We don't have that same kind of every village they build, they're burning 2 of ours, right? They're only going to burn 1 of ours. And so it's kind of more equal in that case. So for us to build back, we're not at as much of a disadvantage. So you want to be very cognizant of not sealing too much during level 4. The time to seal off in level 4 is when you've already won the map. You're in the middle. That is the time to seal off, in this case, the Great Pyramid or the Kremlin or the San Francisco Town Hall. You seal off the center, and then from there you can have a nice farm area for the remaining 2 or 3 weeks of the level 4 event, and you can actually then start pushing back outwards from the middle to all the other different locations on the map that you want to get to. But up until that point, sealing the map has absolutely no purpose in competitive play whatsoever. You're just wasting your conquest resources.